Today we're talking through a fun quest we made, which involves the party needing to find 10 books in a library and returning them to a shelf, giving them access to a secret room and an even more secret reward. This sounds basic, too basic even, so each of these books will activate a wild and wacky effect when picked up, adding to the chaos of the whole affair. On top of this, finding these books isn't just some simple investigation check, no, instead all of them have a unique item placed on their cover and the players need to scour and identify them on the associated library maps we made. Only then can their characters go and get them. There's a lot going on here, more than I even just explained, but creating this quest was a piecemeal process and I didn't even think about having this as a quest at first. So let's look at the original suggestion which sparked the possibility of all of this coming into being. A comment in Twitch chat from Amon Ishitar which described a character from their campaign who translate everyday books into Infernal.
I like that. I like the idea of there being like a mystery text that's translated. And one of the things we will add to this map, because as I've been saying, we are attaching a quest to this. And if we are doing a quest, making sure that there is like interesting items that the party can stumble across and having like small Easter eggs like that aren't necessarily like totally vital to the quest or anything, but add to it a lot, I think really, really good. And I love that idea a lot.
At this point, I thought this would be a small one-off item that the party may stumble upon, but before long, the chat was filled with other book suggestions.
What we can do is we can go through and create, a list of like fun scrolls and books that exist within this library. And we can have like however many we think of. So we'll like write them out, and if the DM ever needs to like find a book or a scroll and the players are like, what is this? Then we can like have all those ideas written out.
While I knew I wanted to do a bit more with these suggestions, I still hadn't clicked into the idea of making this a proper quest, and for now was just having fun discussing the types of books this library could have.
The Book of Stealing. After reading this book, roll an intelligence saving throw. If failed, the book steals half the player's money without them knowing. God damn. I'm starting to now understand why the library was condemned. Yeah, some of these books are ganked. I don't think there's a single book that is like, learn how to like paper mache real good. They're all like, you open the book and your family gets stabbed and it's like, oh no, calamity. Every book has just the most like intensive, crazy thing. Very few histories, very few things you actually want to sort of take out from a library. They're all traps, if anything.
This was all great, but the Bandit King would actually be the one to elevate this by making the suggestion to turn this into a side quest of sorts.
Ooh, maybe the quest could return magical books to their appropriate shelves. Oh, that is such a good idea, because this quest we are doing, it is very much like planned around, they go into the library, they acquire some items. But I think it would be such a good idea if like maybe one of the sentinels or a librarian or an NPC is like, hey, while you're here, can you help us like fix the library? And we've got all these amazing books, right? We've got a list of like 40 books that we've thought of. Maybe not 40, but a lot. And yeah, like having a little side quest within the library that sort of fix it up, I think is a very, very good idea and something we're going to do. They'd quickly follow this up by relating this finding of books to the secret room, which we'd created but didn't have a specific purpose for. Placing the last book in particular opens the secret room. Ooh, because it's like, how do you open a secret room with a bookshelf? You take one of the books off and you pull it at a certain point, right? The opposite though. We're doing the little swindle. You have to put books onto the bookshelf for it to open up. So I love that.
With this side quest starting to gain steam, we'd get a good suggestion for some possible nuisancey enemies that could slightly impair the book search.
Origami enemies. Oh. Yes. Origami enemies would be absolute fatty slappers. Because I think, like I've talked about the sentinels, but the sentinels I think are pretty easy to keep on side. And I think if we're doing the side quest for put the books on here, the party needs to like find the books and go to the piles and look through. And I like the idea of having a bunch of like origami book enemies, right? We've talked about all the different like curses and inflictions and damage that you can take from the different books, but also having like small book enemies that maybe only do like 1d4 damage or only have 4 health and do a low amount of damage. But having lots of them and swarming, I think is a great like secondary enemy to have, or an enemy you can sort of add into the mix there. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I really like this suggestion, but I think I might leave it out for this quest. My reasoning is that later we'll add in effects for each book, meaning we'd have 2 different combating forces assaulting the players when they find the books. Having 2 things happen at once can obviously be fine, if not outwardly good, but in this scenario it's probably too much, too complex, too overwhelming, and is likely going to end up hurting the quest more than it makes it better. So having the discipline to not include every idea you have, even if they are all really good individually, is sometimes key to making the actual playing of the quests in sessions as good as possible. During our next stream, we'd continue on with this quickly blossoming side quest where we'd turn the spread of ideas we had into something that actually resembles a quest.
So what we'll do is we'll go through, pick our top 10 books, and then we'll go back through the map, give them some descriptions, and then very specifically place the books on the map so the party can go around and look for them specifically.
As mentioned, we'd gamify this finding of books by giving each book an effect that is activated when they are picked up. This makes the quest more than just finding 10 books. This was inspired by many of the suggestions we'd been given, and we'd figured we'd go through and do this with all of them. One example from the original chat suggestions was a book that shoots a 1d6 arrow at the player. But to make this easier to apply to all the books, we needed a structure.
What we need to do is we need to give a physical description of the book related to the stuff on the maps. We need to like describe what's in the book, and then we need to talk about the effect that they give. Those are sort of the 3 stages, and we're going to do that with all of them.
When making these effects, we went for a mix of mostly short term with a few simple long term. The majority of them are just meant to make the ongoing adventures in the library a little more interesting, a little more fun, adding a slight extra dynamic without being too overpowering. This meant striking really good ideas off our shortlist simply because they were too expansive, including one where the party find a book called The Player's Handbook.
The meta concept of D&D would be a fun Eldritch quest. I mean, absolutely. It's like, it's a good enough idea to be like a campaign, like a solid campaign. You know, about like characters recognizing they're in the concept of D&D and how they use that and meeting a bunch of like Eldritch and magical figures and like, you know, gaining self-awareness on like a proper full level. Like it's a very, you could do a lot with that. And I think just like sidling it into a side quest of a quest is too much and too much business.
When it came to thinking of effects, we wanted it to be more than just shifting of numbers. We wanted them to affect the playstyle of the session, such as providing cool role-playing opportunities.
I think what we're going to do is a book that details a story of an ancient hero. If the person fails the charm for the next hour, they must act as the hero. I think that's fun. I think that's like a fun roleplay thing.
When it came to some of the negative effects, I wanted to try and make them firstly easy to implement narratively, but also more fun to have happen than actually bad.
And every time you pass an object or corner, you roll a d20, and on lower you take 1d4. That's going to be too much to sort of figure out every time they go through a corner. I think this could be the Book of Stumbly Feet. And every single time this person goes up or down a staircase, they have to roll a dexterity check. And if they fail, they fall down the staircase and take 1d6 damage.
In both of these cases, having a player pretend to be an ancient hero or having them think twice before using stairs, the effect should actually open up the game for some crazy kooky gameplay. Maybe the player afflicted with the inability to use stairs properly sets up a grapple and rope on the balcony to avoid taking the stairs. Or perhaps they ask the druid to polymorph them into a bird so they can just fly on up. Or maybe they have one of the other characters give them a piggyback, or so on. Even though falling down the stairs and taking damage is a negative affliction, we want to create stuff where the party has a good time with it, and as people are happy it happened because it made the session more enjoyable. This is usually the logic I use when making anything more difficult for the party. Very rarely will I outwardly make it harder for the sake of making them sweat or just being punitive. I want to push them to be more imaginative, be more creative, use mechanics or play the game in fun and unique ways, because this usually leads to more satisfying and memorable experiences, and to me, that makes the best campaigns. And when doing this, I rarely create a channel with a specific correct solution. I focus more on developing an interesting obstacle. Then I let the players create their own solutions, where I'll adjudicate the appropriate response from there, deciding what makes sense and what would work based off their explanations and the situation at hand. With this said, we did want to add in some good effects as well.
You can make the stats plus book be like the Book of Balance and have it raise the lowest stat by 1. That's Awesome. I fucking love that. That is such a good idea.
We also added some depth where one of the negative outcomes can become good if they pass the original save.
Say they roll like a dex save of like 22 or above, something like really high. Then they can make a sleight of hand check of 20 or above that they steal from the book. That could be fun. Where it's like if you succeed in this chain of saves and rolls, then they're able to take valuable information from the book. And the information they can get can maybe be like a permanent increase to sleight of hand.
On top of this, we'd also weave a couple of these books into 2 different side quests.
I think we can actually put this in here. So the janitor has the keys to this place. And yeah, the party could like kill them or whatever, maybe. But it's like, we can have it so they need to get into here to get this book.
In this scenario, the players need to do a side quest for the janitor whose magical broom has been mistakenly wielded by the sentinels that roam the place. And if they do this, then the janitor will open up the workshop and let them get the book. Or, you know, they could just steal the key or kill them for it, or, you know, anything else they really want to do. This adds to the cohesion and connectivity of the various side quests and creates an impetus for the players to interact with more of the content the library contains. So this is a lot of information about the books, but we haven't really talked about what the quest is like. In short, a library caretaker NPC, a different NPC from the janitor NPC I just mentioned, will ask for help recovering some special books. They'll give the party a list which details the visual look of the 10 books they're asking them to recover. The party will then Where's Wally style look at the map and will need to find them there before their characters can go get them. We placed each book on the map with a unique item on the cover so they are visually distinctive from the swath of identical books.
Get like some funky adornment to put that on the book instead. So it like looks like it has some sort of fresh, crazy cover. I think that makes it kind of look like there's a knife on the cover. Yeah. Okay. Something a little bit different. It's not perfect, but I think it's a bit more interesting.
While this quest is intended to be a situation where the party need to actually look through the maps, we of course want it to be accessible to complete through more imagined D&D methods. So making investigation checks might aid the party in their pursuit of these books. We also made it so some of the NPCs in the library might give advice or know where some of these books are. We also discussed what happens if the party use detect magic.
What kind of info would the party get if they cast detect magic in this library, by the way? Fuck. Oh, God. It's such a good question, and I'm annoyed at how good a question it is. Yeah, it would show them the books, it would ping the books, but it's going to ping so much other random stuff that it's not actually helpful. Or it's limited in its health, rather than being like ping, and then the DM's just like there, like I can use the mouse there, like and just point to it specifically. That's maybe how I would approach that.
So this is the base of the quest. The party is asked to retrieve 10 books. They are given a list of the descriptions of these books and need to actually look on the map to find them. Every time they pick up a book, a specific effect will activate which aims to make the whole library going experience a little more frisky. And some of these book findings are associated with other side quests here in the library. Awesome, but what do the party get as their reward? Well, when they place all the books in the bookcase, they'll get access to the secret room behind it. In this room is a completed necromantic ceremony which allows the party to perform 1 resurrection for no cost. This can be used to resurrect an NPC, which is a part of a different side quest here in the library, or they can keep it for themselves and use it at any time. I like the idea of having a free resurrection for the party available, especially for parties without much healing, as this can open up a lot of opportunities in the future, either in combat where maybe they're a little bit more aggressive than they would usually be, or they save it and use it for some fun and different roleplay. And that's the quest, which I'm really happy with. At its core, I think the search for books on the map is fairly unique and different. I think the effects of books will lead to some fun gameplay, which will spice up sessions. I think it effectively weaves in with other side quests, creating a more alive area and an interconnected web of decisions and motives for the library as a whole. And I think the reward is a good one that can change up the dynamic of the entire campaign. All in all, making for a pretty solid and detailed side quest. And that's the video. If you like libraries, D&D, or the concept of sides, then subscribe to the channel for more D&D content creation. If you want access to the quest module or these maps, then all of that is available on my Patreon. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!